Second, I was listening to Bernie earlier, and he was talking about how he plans to, after the election, hopefully if Biden wins, about to run, just saying, "Hi, hey, enjoy your run, bud. Don't trip and fall, okay? That's important. That's important not to do that." Um, so lots of people, rip, lots of people talk about um how like elections aren't important. I think they're very important, obviously, you know. But also what's really important as well, that I don't want to get lost here, is outside of election, um, direct action that you can do, and how elections can influence it. Right? I want to be able to do the protesting work that I want to do all of the things that I want to be able to do, the direct action, the organizing that I want to be able to do under an administration or a government that won't want to, label me as a terrorist organization or anything. And that's cool. That's good. I think that's great. With that being said, Trump is not the person who's going to do that. Constantly trying to label Antifa and other left-wing organizers as violent extremists who need to be put down isn't good for the left or anybody else who wants to be left. That's not good. And with that being known, it kind of reminds me of all the work Bernie Sanders did in between the 2020 and 2016, the 2016 and 2020 elections. Because after he got all of his prominence that he needed, he was able to parlay that into like a massive organization and grassroots movement and a lot of direct action that was able to do some real change on the ground. I mean, we can't forget about when he was able to do direct action and get and organize Amazon protesters to be able to change Amazon's policy to make their warehouse workers gain $15 an hour at the very least. That's amazing. That's amazing. We can't forget that. We can't forget a brand new Congress and Justice Democrats, all inspired by Bernie Sanders, or what's Bernie's one? Our Revolution. Our Revolution that also put candidates in office. I mean the, as Trump would like to say, AOC plus 3, the squad, came in on that wave. We got like Cory Bush on there, so many other people, not even on federal level, but state level as well, which is also vitally important to be on. We can't just keep talking about what's happening at the federal level, even though it's very important. The municipality level is extremely important to getting actual work done for communities, city council members. I remember what's her name, Ayanna Pressley. She was a part of the Boston City Council before she ran for her representative seat, and that was in the work that she was able to do there was very important for the city of Boston, dubbed one of the most racist cities in America. They really needed the work that she was doing there, and they still do. And I'm glad that she's able to represent a lot of their interests there on a much bigger stage. Now, I'm not saying that the work that she was doing before was bad, or not as valid. It's very much valid. It's just on a different stage, and I hope someone who took her seat was able to continue her work. Middle one, hell yeah. With all that being said, Bernie Sanders is now planned to go across the country and do what he did between 2016 and 2020, again between 2020 and 2024, as long as he's willing and able to. And that is do a lot of grassroots organizing, on the ground organizing for other like progressive candidates and political movements, ballot initiatives, all of these certain things that can really make a difference to a lot of people. That isn't just elections, right? And that's not saying elections played no role in this. It absolutely did. Would Bernie Sanders be able to do what he did between 2016 and 2020 if he had not been able to get the to gain so much prominence? I mean, we have to remember, we loved Bernie, right? But before that, no one knew about the no-name senator from Vermont, the like lone socialist who worked alone, gave long impassioned speeches to an empty Congress, and was able to get like some of his policy done through through like small additions to other bigger bills, and now it's been able to change into something far more dramatic, and that came through the 2016 election out of an Obama presidency. Lots of people, I don't really forget like the influence that an actual election has on the general public and the political landscape that follows afterwards. Lots of things can happen, and lots of things can happen again under Biden under a Biden Harris administration, and afterwards as well. I mean, we should be able to field someone. Hopefully, we'll be able to field someone to run in if not 2024. 2028, and be able to get more progressive policy done. And if it's not the presidency, then we should make sure that a Republican doesn't get there. If it's not the presidency, it should be making sure that we have more progressive politicians in Congress to be able to get a very solid and very strong progressive bloc in Congress to be able to push policy left. I mean, Bernie Sanders' existence outside that coincided with the 2016 election is what gave the is what forced the entire Democratic machine, that dusty, decrepit, a monstrous obelisk, to lurch left to the 2020 election. I mean, if Bernie Sanders didn't run in the 2020 election, I don't think that we would have gotten as much policy discussion, that we would have gotten as much people at least signaling that they'd like to move in Bernie's position, people forcing themselves to at least posture in Bernie's direction, because that means a lot. Even if they don't follow through on it, that means a lot. Like the disappointment that people will feel when they're lied to again, or where the policy provisions that they want passed are put on the back burner again by another one of these politicians. That's a cold shower for someone who previously was not politically engaged. This is vitally important to waking people up. Give them a good shake. Some people need a real good shake out of what we perceive to be normal politics as usual. This should not be politics as usual anymore. We shouldn't just go back to brunch. There's so many more things that we have to be doing. So many more things. And we can't allow people to just like kind of rest on their laurels. Oh, we got Biden. Now we don't have to deal about Trump. We don't want to go back to brunch. Brunch is not good. People can't afford brunch, either literally or metaphorically. They can't afford to go to brunch. And we shouldn't pretend that they can, elections for the political activists aren't the beginning and end of politics. They are a stepping stone. They are useful, especially if we're able to get people in who are at least sympathetic to our policy prescriptions, if not outright supporting them, or at the very least not being horribly against them to make us political prisoners, to where advocating for our policies is now a coin flip on a death sentence. Marching in the streets shouldn't be that way. All the BLM shootings that we've been encountering shouldn't be a thing, but it is, and a lot of it has been spurred by Trump's rhetoric. You can't say that it hasn't. Not saying that he's the progenitor of American racism. That's ridiculous. But to not say that he's a catalyst for a lot of this happening, and if it weren't for him, a lot of it may not have happened, isn't a far stretch. I mean, just think about what I said earlier. If Bernie Sanders can activate a progressive movement in this country, why couldn't have Trump activated and emboldened a fascist, right-wing, alt-right, white nationalist movement in this country? That makes perfect sense to me. But apparently some people don't. I don't know if they don't want to accept it off of like principle, or feeling like it makes them feel better in their choices and resting in their laurels. I don't know. But it's 100% true. And that shouldn't be taken for granted. We know for a fact that what is it? Hate crimes spiked under Trump. That didn't happen for just no reason. There are consequences to elections. There are consequences to elections, and we shouldn't be able to just say those consequences are whatever. I mean, when you have to deal with them, you have to deal with them. But at the end of the day, we should make sure that we mitigate them as much as possible, because policy dictates what we can do. I mean, even in Tennessee, the state near me, their governor made it almost illegal to protest on federal land. They can get their voting rights taken away for protesting for their rights. It can get taken away. Is that just something that you should, who cares? Whatever, my dear. That's really important. That shouldn't be a thing. And sadly it is. So what are we going to do about it? For protesting bad? Protesting is bad. You're right. What are we going to do about it? You can do direct action, but in places like that, sometimes the only thing that these people listen to is the election result telling them that they no longer have power anymore. Sometimes that's the only thing that they listen to. You think Mitch McConnell's going to listen to direct action? You think he cares about protests? You think he cares? He laughs. He laughs his protests as his body falls apart and necroses. He doesn't care. Some of these people just don't care. Sometimes just either, like a revolt, France style, or an election is the only way to get these people to stop just hurting people. Some people just don't care until power is wrenched from their cold, dead hands. And you're going to have to take it from their hands. Some people just won't stop. And people as depraved and disgusting as McConnell are just some of those people who just won't stop. Sometimes elections are some of the ways to do it. I mean, lots of people are talking about Bolivia, right? And we can talk about Bolivia all we want. Bolivia, I see a lot of people, especially Bernie or Busters, talking about Bolivia when it comes to them voting out their fascist regime. And they did vote out their fascist regime. You can vote out people who were put in. If there's a genuine democratic election, you can do it, right? You can do political advocacy and make that happen. You absolutely can. Now, are we going to boil down what the people in Bolivia did to simply voting? They just suffered under that fascist regime and then just woke up one day and went to the ballot box and went back home? Absolutely not. There are people who died protesting in the streets to get this done. And we shouldn't, and no one said that that's not a thing or no one should do that. But when it comes to these people who are tacitly against electoralism or voting, to them, your entire political system revolves around voting, and that's it, which isn't true. I love direct action. I went to a BLM rally myself. I love it. It's amazing. Protesting is great. It makes you feel good. You can organize. It's amazing things, right? It brings the community together for a good goal, right? That doesn't mean that you should say voting doesn't matter then. It absolutely does. No one said protesting didn't matter. Lots of people are saying voting doesn't. So kind of what I'm saying here is just action outside of elections are vitally important to making sure that we can make a better country, right? Real change doesn't come through the ballot box. No one ever said it did. It comes through massive organizing and changing in the political system from the people who run it, from the people who make it work, the people. With that being said, saying elections absolutely don't matter is just kind of ridiculous. It matters a whole lot what you can and can't do, especially in a country where 50% of the people or more are either not politically active or just don't vote. And with that being said, where politicians can run rampant and do basically whatever they want, that makes it very hard for us to do our political advocacy to make actual genuine change. Because when people think about our system, they think about the old necrosed, dying body of a nation built on excess, rotting in front of them, instead of the green pasture that they could be frolicking in at any point in time. Voting matters. It really does. It goes hand in hand, tandem with direct action and protesting it. It absolutely does, and we need to make sure that we do both to form a better world for all of us. So listen, I don't have this "I voted" sticker on my desk for nothing. It means a lot to me to vote. My grandma grew up in a country where in a lot of places she couldn't vote legally. I grew up in a country when a lot of places they're still trying to take my vote away just because of the color of my skin, and that's really unfortunate. And at the end of the day, those people won't stop if they're not just taken out of office, you know? And we would like to do that very peacefully because we hate political violence here. Let's do it really peacefully. So let's just I don't want to argue about this anymore. Stop the argument. It doesn't matter. Vote when you have the opportunity to. In every other moment, be doing direct action to make a real change in this country because they both go hand in hand. We need both to make real change.